3, 2.
We only got one life, so it's time to live it full. I don't hesitate, I embrace every day, cause we only got one life, so it's time to live it full. It's not about trying to achieve more again, but rather how to lose and let go. Let me explain. Once you let go of all things that aren't significant, you'll be left with everything that is truly important. I'm living everyday life with a purpose. Living everyday life with a purpose. This is another episode of the podcast. Live it full.
Welcome to the introductory podcast for Live It Full. I am Richard, and I have my beautiful bride, Kaitlin, in the Live It Full studio with me today. And what we want this episode to be about is our journey to this point where we make our first podcast, as well as just tell a little bit of our background, a little bit about Live It Full as a website, as a blog, and as our upcoming other ventures with e-commerce and some of the other things that we're going to do. But first, we want to introduce ourselves. So I'm Richard Fergeson. A little bit of my background is we've been small business owners since 2012. So coming up on about 9 years. We are both in insurance, real estate investors, and we blog through liveitfull.com. Go check that out when you get a chance. But kind of what we wanted to talk about today was a little bit about what we'll be doing going forward, what we're going to talk about, who we're going to have on the show, kind of our format. So this one's going to be a little bit different than our next episodes, but we want to make sure that you know what we're going to do so you can subscribe and listen to the next ones. With that in mind, Kaitlin, give a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I am rocking our baby here behind me. So that's the movement. We have 4 kids. We've been married for 12 years.
Yep.
All right.
12 sounds right.
12 years. Our oldest is 9. So we're just a busy household with 4 kids. And as Richard said, business owners. And we live it full. We try to every day.
Yep. So what we're going to talk a little bit about today is kind of what led us to this point, because I want to say we had, I'm not at the point of having a what I would call a midlife crisis by age. Although part of the story is my father passed away when he was 66. I was 33. So I guess technically by that, you start thinking about your own mortality, which actually kind of led us to this point. We had talked about blogging and talked about what we wanted as a family for a long time. Since we've had our first children, and we just had never actually gotten to that point. My father passed away unexpectedly. He had a stroke. It was one of those things that we talk about sometimes in life that you just proverbially get punched in the gut, because I had seen him the night before and waved at him and told him bye and didn't expect him to be gone by the next afternoon. And those things, they impact people differently. I took it much harder than I ever would have anticipated. Kaitlin can probably tell you that. I'm generally a pretty resilient person, but it brought me to my knees for a bit. And so what we, a big deal to us is this Live It Full mantra that we had come up with and we had talked about and hashtagged previous to his death. But it kind of led us to that point. And so I had seen a Mark Manson quote actually yesterday or the day before on Instagram that he said, ultimately death is the only thing that gives us perspective on the value of life. And Mark Manson, you'll hear me say my favorite author a lot. Mark Manson's definitely one of my favorite authors. But that quote right there, I think you don't understand the value of life until you experience a traumatic loss, which it's hard to explain to people because we talk about those things. We talk about we want to live it full, and we have a lot of people who message us and ask us questions on that. And sometimes I don't know that it's something you can explain until you experience it. But we made a conscious decision that no matter what, we were going to live a full life. We were going to enjoy every day, because you may have, say, 15 or 20 days in your life that are what you consider monumental, maybe not in a good way or a bad way, but deaths and births and marriages. You have a handful in the grand scheme of things. It's everyday life that we try to live with purpose. But I don't think we're ever taught how to do that. So part of what we're going to talk about is kind of what Live It Full means to us and where we're taking that and kind of where this podcast will go. Do you have anything to add to that, Kaitlin?
Well, I would say that I'm equally as passionate to live a full life and to do things that maybe average people don't do. My muse, though, is going to be different than Richard's. We're super different people, really different people.
Oh, we're definitely the yin and the yang.
Yeah. And so
I'm the spender, you're the saver.
yes, we'll get into that. So my why isn't from losing a parent. Mine might be like things that I never had growing up, or things that I wished we could have done that maybe now we can do with our children. Doesn't necessarily have to be monetary. It can just be time. And so we have an RV, and that's something that we never did with my family. Richard never did with his family, but it's something that our kids will grow up doing. So, I mean, I think live it full can come from a variety of different reasons.
For sure. And it's a question that we ask people, well, what does it mean to you? Because it's going to mean something different to everybody. The concept of living a full life, you hear live life to the fullest, and that's obviously part of our mantra. But to us, it's about recognizing it and being intentional. And so when we say live it full, it's a reminder every day of what we're trying to accomplish. Kaitlin mentioned time and money. I think that part of what we want to do is help enable people to understand how to generate income potentially from other sources, from not necessarily their day job. Obviously, we're self-employed and we have income streams. But what it does is money lets you buy your time back. And so a big part of that is helping people figure that out. I think we're at a point in the US and in the world that we've got more opportunity before us than ever before. Don't listen to the news. Don't listen to people talk about it, because you can get online and you can start a business like that. And you can accomplish anything that you want to and anything that you want to put your mind to. Just 95% of people don't. But the opportunities are there to live a full life and to have everything that you want, including the family and the business. And so that's one question we get a lot is, how do you run 3 businesses or 4 and have 4 children and 3 dogs and ballet and piano and everything? It's a challenge, especially because we talked about the yin and the yang. Kaitlin is the planner and I am the we'll figure it out guy. And so I've had to grow since we've been married and since our lives have been a little hectic, on not relying on let's figure it out, but becoming much more of a planner.
Yes. So like Richard said, we get asked that question a lot, and he kind of did a poll yesterday, ask us any questions.
In our Facebook group. So Live It Full, the community, if you want to check that out on Facebook.
Yes. And this is just kind of an icebreaker intro to us, because he'll get into podcasts with other people that delve into capitalism and saving and business and all of that sort of thing. But one of the questions is, how do we do businesses and family and everything else? And my overview answer on that is, it's going to look different for everybody, which I know isn't what people want to hear. But nobody's family looks quite like ours does. Nobody has the exact same businesses, the exact same kids, the same house, the same dogs. So what works for us isn't necessarily going to work for somebody else. Having said that, I think it just comes down to our personality. Both of us are pretty active people. Richard can't stay inside at all. He has to be moving. He has to be outside. Like, he drives us all crazy if he has to sit down for too long. And like, I naturally hate clutter. So it's just part of kind of who we are, maybe, that makes our life run a certain way. I can't stand to look out at my house and see stuff all over the countertops. So I'm just going to get up and clear it away. Even if I don't have the energy necessarily to do it, I would rather be tired and then just get it done. Laundry is the same way. I'm the organized list making one. This is probably, and we've talked about this before though, our want to do everything and to live a full life kind of has a negative aspect when it comes to being able to rest and recharge.
Yeah. And there's a big difference between rest and recharge and going on vacation or going on trips. A 2-week trip with 3 or 4 children, that's 5,000 miles through the mountains and 4 or 5 national parks like we did last summer, isn't relaxing.
No.
And that's okay. I've learned to start to recognize when I am being burned out. And a part of it's really clear communication with Kaitlin and I, to where she understands to tell me you're going down a path where you're going to get burned out, because you can't pour from an empty cup. I can't be the person I need to be if I'm not recharged. So, I mean, a big part of what I do is I'm in a mastermind group in Dallas with people from all over the country that are like-minded. And I go once a month to Dallas. It's what we call Fly In Friday. Most people fly in, I drive, but it's a day I get that I do get to recharge a lot. But I leave her at home the majority of a day for 12 or 14 hours with the children to take care of, which is not necessarily an easy feat. So that's something that we've learned, though. How do we respond to those things, and how do we learn how to manage that?
Right. And what recharges you does not recharge me, because I would never in my life do that, what you're doing.
Right. And
I wouldn't
that's
want to do that, because that to me would be stressful.
right. And it goes back to the Kaitlin and I are chocolate and vanilla. I like crunchy peanut butter. She likes creamy strawberry jelly, grape jelly. In just about every area, we're probably opposites, except for what I would consider the important things, what our priorities are. And that kind of gets us next to, what we've tried to establish. We used to have a saying. If you followed our blog or you've been on our Facebook page or group, you kind of probably know some of these things. But we had a saying when we first got married and into having children, that I had picked up somewhere along the way, that was God, family, work. And so we had looked at that as, if things aren't going right, if you're struggling in areas, your priorities are probably out of whack. You've sat down and you've gotten those to where you're putting more emphasis on work than family, or family than God. And so it was kind of a quick GFW, like you could do a pulse on where am I based on God, family, work, because those are your top three priorities for us. Yours may look different. But one thing that we'll talk about and that I'm big on is establishing what your top 3 to 5 priorities are, because at that point, the rest is noise.
Mm-hmm. And I think part of juggling all of it is realizing that you're going to be better at certain things at different times in your life than others. So, for instance, Richard and I used to go on either weekly lunch dates. We were really good about date night. Well, we have an infant right now, and that's just not really easy or possible every single week. And so, does that mean our relationship is struggling? No, it just means maybe we're not pouring into it the way that we did pre-baby.
But it's a short season in the grand scheme of things. We know that she's going to be in a different spot 3 months from now, right. Really 3 weeks from now. Babies grow quickly. They don't keep.
Right. Sadly.
And so, but part of it, I think, is having clear communication with each other, that's okay. And that we're in a season where it's a struggle. Because I can tell you the last 90 days have been a bit of a, for lack of better terms, a cluster. Starting from, we'd taken a trip to Tennessee, got back, Kaitlin goes into preterm labor in the hospital a couple of days. I have kids. I'm running back and forth, taking care of businesses, making sure everything's okay. And it just kind of kept going from there. And then we get into, we're still in this COVID situation.
All the while COVID is happening, Christmas.
And then snowvid. We get some of the worst ice storms in Texas history. And so I can tell you it's been a challenging 3 months, but we have gotten the podcast up and running, which is one of our goals. And that's the thing. You can let things in life slow you down, or you can just go through it. And that's one thing that I've learned from some of my friends that I've met in the past year who do similar things like this, is that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. If you have goals, if you have priorities, you have to hit them. So I'll tell you a little bit about where I struggled about the time that my dad died. Was I was on a couple different boards. I'd been president of a couple boards, great nonprofit organizations trying to do good things. And so sometimes you tell yourself, I'm burned out, I've got too much going on, but it's a good thing. Like I'm looking at these things and they're noble causes. But at the end of the day, I had to reprioritize, because I realized that my time is limited during the day and night. And I can't do everything if I'm focusing on 5 or 6 different things. And so that's where we really started establishing, I've got a blog series called Faith, Family, Finances, and that's where God, Family, Work kind of transitioned, because I had to say, if it's not in my top 5 things, and we'll go through those. I can't make time for it. And that's the reality of it is yes, those are good things to do, serving, and I'm never against it. And I will be back on boards at some point. But right now, if it's not faith, family, finances, or travel, it's really, I don't have a place for it. And so that doesn't mean I'm serving on a men's committee at our church right now, but that falls into our faith. So if it's not, and when I say finances, it's a catchy F3. It also, you can include fitness and have an F4, financial and physical fitness. But when I say finances, I don't mean just our personal finances, but how we run our businesses. So it's our work aspect of it. But I had to decide because I don't want to be at meetings till 7 or 8 when my kids are going to bed at 8:30. That I could only do things that fit into the faith, family, finances, and then our next ones are travel. And the good thing is, Kaitlin and I, as different as we are, we have goal congruency on those things. We both love to travel, and obviously, faith, family, finances are the hierarchy of what we do. So I think part of what we're going to talk about in the podcast and what we've done on the blog and what I will continue to doing in my coaching with customers and with clients is it's about establishing those priorities. I'm not saying that yours will fall into faith, family, finances like ours have, but I think that they probably should. Most people who would align themselves with us would have faith. And then you would put your family after that, and then your businesses.
Yeah. I think that communication, I mean, as cliche as it sounds, I think communication is key. I've been on maternity leave, and this is just one of those, it's not always perfect scenarios, but Richard gets so enthralled in whatever he's doing. He like gets tunnel vision. And so
that ADHD kicking in.
Well, and so the other day he walked in and he was doing something. He was on a work call, did something really quick and left. Right. And then that night I said, what did I say to you? Don't come in the house or leave the house without
giving you a kiss.
Right.
Acknowledging my love.
Right. So, but I just had to tell him that. And there's no sense in me being angry about something that he doesn't know.
Yeah, I'm stupid. I'm a slow individual. So sometimes I need to be told what to do. Some of that goes back to love languages.
It does.
And we've talked about that, and we're going to talk about it on a podcast, I'm sure, because I think the love languages are important in a lot of relationships, not just in a spousal or a partner situation, because I know her love language is you can have multiple ones. Hers is much more on the side of acts of service. She's never going to be mad at me for doing the dishes or laundry, or, well, laundry might be different if I do it wrong, but she's much more acts of service. I am probably words of affirmation.
Yeah. You like to be told you did a good job.
And so we've had to learn that because we are different. Physical touch is probably one of mine. If she was in a bad mood and I attempted physical touch, she might not respond to it as well as I would. And so we've had to learn those things. And it's not because I don't normally kiss you on the way out, but sometimes I have to be reminded because I do hyper focus on things.
Yes.
And that's okay. But a lot of it's learning how to live together. And it's taken us 12 years or so to figure some of that out. We're still learning each other. So never think it's never a completely done deal, obviously.
Well, and it's funny. I laugh because I was thinking the other day about what's my favorite vacation we've ever taken. What was my favorite time? When did we have the most fun? What were we doing? And I think mine was Arkansas, Hot Springs.
Okay.
I loved that vacation. Every day we did something fun. There was this sweet little theme park and our kids loved it. But going through and remembering back, I think we fought one day, maybe. Mac hit his head. He fell
twice
that trip.
Like not fall, like fell out of our travel trailer onto concrete.
Yes. And
like
he had
2 or 3 feet.
He had a grid from our rug, like our outdoor rug was in his forehead. But so it's just funny to look back and the things that we enjoyed or that we loved so much, they're still not perfect.
Oh, by no means perfect.
Like it's still a crap show sometimes.
We were driving through Yellowstone, and in the moment, I probably wouldn't have admitted it, but I got really frustrated with our kids because they did not appreciate what we were doing.
Right. He was like, "We're in Yellowstone. I would have killed to have this vacation when I was a boy." And I'm like, "Well, we're driving through trees, and our oldest child had just turned 8.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I
gotta
can't
cut him some slack here.
I can't get frustrated for them not wanting to experience life through my eyes. And so, yeah, no, those things aren't perfect. I mean, but it's something that we said today. Things are better to be done than perfect. And I have a bad tendency to try to put things out that are perfect. And it's not necessarily that I'm a perfectionist. I just want to put my best foot forward. I'm in sales. First impressions matter. But at the end of the day, perfect that isn't done doesn't matter. Done is better than perfect. So I think sometimes taking those trips that aren't perfect are still better than not taking the trips.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, especially with children, because people have asked us, how do you travel with children? We drug our 2 oldest when they were 5 and 3 on a Baltic cruise, started in Stockholm, Sweden, went through a few ports, including St. Petersburg, Russia. We drugged them through a 3.5-hour museum tour at the Hermitage.
I was pregnant.
Yes. And we had people go, y'all are nuts. Well, first off, I wanted to not take the kids, and Kaitlin said she would not go with me if we didn't take the kids. So we compromised, and the kids went with us. But
it was fine.
It was a blast. Macy still remembers parts of it, being 5, and they got to experience something that they may never get to do again, and probably most of the people they're around have never done. But we were fortunate enough to have that opportunity, and we weren't going to waste it.
Right.
And so we've done things with children that most people probably wouldn't. And that's okay. They all, the more you make them travel, the better they travel for the most part. And so we have drugged them everywhere, but that's a big part of our lives. And no, it's not easy. There's nothing easy about some of those things. But it goes back to we talked about it the other day and Live It Full, the community, that hard is not bad. We have this idea in our head sometimes that hard is bad. And hard isn't bad. Hard's part of the process. And if we just did things based on how easy or hard they were, most of the time you don't do much. If that's your defining factor, because it's not easy to plan an RV trip for 14 days with all the kids. And at this point, we have a 5th wheel with 4 children, and I bought a new pickup, and one of them sitting in the front with us, which would be the biggest one because she legally can.
We haven't taken a long trip like that yet.
No, and so it's going to be a challenge.
She'll be messing with the radio the whole time. Like, her feet will be in my space.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Close quarters, yeah.
And at the time, we may say we shouldn't have done this, but we do take time to recognize that hard is rewarding. And it's the thing we talked about it one day. Sometimes you have to pick your hard. Being physically fit is hard. Being fat, let's just call it what it is hard. Being broke is hard. Being financially responsible is hard. So pick your hard. Life's hard. Mark Manson talks a lot about that. Life is from the cradle to the grave, filled with hardships. You pick your hard. And so that's a big part of what we're going to talk about going forward and kind of what our plans are. We did have a couple questions from some of our loyal Facebook followers.
Quick, I'm remembering. So I would have to say the biggest thing that keeps our family on track
is Kaitlin.
Okay. It's a dry erase board that has magnets on the back, and it sits on our refrigerator. And on that board is a grocery list. It is sometimes a meal plan. Like, I'll write out the dinners that we're going to be having for the week. And I think the best part of that board is when I don't want to nag Richard, I don't want to say, I need you to do this and this and this and this and this. I just write it on the board, and then that's his list.
So, not to get into astrology, she is a Virgo, and they have a tendency to make list and even mark stuff off they've already done, but they'll write it down. It's just part of the personality trait.
Yeah, and so you would rather it be on a list than for me to speak at you about all the things that you need to do.
So you assume that I know to do things, but if I don't, it goes back to being slow. If you put it on the list, I go do it and mark it off for you. And so that's something that we've learned. But no, I want to get to some of these questions because I think they're pretty solid. A couple of them were from some of our followers on Facebook. How do you manage multiple businesses, 4 kids, and make time for each other? It's intentional.
The dry erase board on the refrigerator.
That is part of it, but it's making, talking about making time for each other. It's scheduled at times, which I know we've heard people talk about taking romance out of situations where you schedule things like dates or intimacy. That's a good word to use. But if you know those things are scheduled, I think that's part of any relationship is talking about it and kind of figuring out how to make it work. But we don't want to fool you either. We don't always have it all figured out, and there's times that I probably get more frustrated than Kaitlin on certain things with being overwhelmed. But it's something that we've learned how to deal with each other on and help each other.
Yet he keeps adding more
Full
to our plate.
So, Kaitlin, if you were one of the Golden Girls, who would you be, and why would you be Dorothy?
Because she is a comedic genius, and her timing is impeccable, and her faces are hilarious.
All right. And so one of our college friends asked you, how have you not managed to age a day since college? She needs your secrets.
Our friends that sell Rodan and Fields will probably be upset at this, but I use oil of Olay 7-in-1 from Walmart.
Every day?
Every day.
Goes back to the power of habits and routine. We talked about that some this week. All right. This is from a good friend of ours who will actually be on the show in the next couple of weeks, Matt Adkins. He says, is it true wives would rather give up some material things, way of life type things, to have more time with their husbands?
Absolutely. I wouldn't say that either of us are super materialistic, although we both like to have nice things. I'm the less materialistic one.
Without a doubt.
Fergeson likes nicer things than I do, I guess.
It's okay. We call it like we see it.
So I would be very willing to do without in order to spend more time with my husband.
Which I think we do strive regardless. But that's part of what I try to achieve, and what I want to try to have people understand is that you can have it all. And anybody who says that money doesn't make you happy is right. However, money buys you time, which creates happiness. And so there is an aspect of that is totally true, that I have seen a lot of very wealthy people that were unhappy, and I've seen a lot of very, we'll say, poor people who were happy, but I've seen a lot of the opposite too. And it's a mindset. You can be happy in any situation, but to do the things that we want to do, we need residual income. We need multiple income streams. And like I was saying earlier, we live in a world that you can do any of that easily. People make money on Instagram. I mean, you can set up an e-commerce shop with very little technical experience. I mean, if I can set up a website, if I can figure out how to podcast, if I can figure out how to do these things from a technical side, it's not that difficult. Every bit of information you could ever ask for is out there right now. And people aren't necessarily seizing that, though. Right. And so we want to talk about some of that, because I think that figuring out how to monetize the things that you're doing makes a ton of sense. And it allows you to spend time with your family when you have other income streams coming in. And that's kind of the bottom line on it. Some people don't like capitalism. I am a super capitalist, and I think that the free market should reign. I think that we should be responsible with it. And I also think that charity is a big part of that, though. And I think that's where people get the misconception about capitalism. I think that income should be spent 70% on your expenses, 20% invested, and 10% to charity every month.
I was going to say, I think that could probably be a whole hour or something.
Oh, it definitely probably will be.
Would be talking about sort of our percentages and how we budget. Richard typically handles all of the budgeting. I thought in the beginning that I would like to be included in that, but it's really difficult for two people to try to know what's going on all the time, moving money from this account to that account, and you're constantly having to update passwords. And anyway, we don't have our money separate. Our money's all together. And I trust him with it. But anyway, I think that could be a whole.
But we talk
podcast.
about it. I mean, we both we know what's going on.
We talk about it.
We'll take that for another episode based on that face she gave me. But that's okay, because we're trying to be real here. We don't want to be anybody that we're not, because I think that is super important to be who you are on social media and in real life. And you put the good, you put the bad, and hopefully people can learn from the things that we do well and the things we don't do well.
Yeah. I will say, so I'll pose this statement to you and then you just react to it. Okay. Because we have daughters and you're married to a business owner that's a woman, obviously. So, okay. So men and women, even if they have the same title, they're in the same role, are treated differently by mainstream public.
100%. I can't disagree with that at all. I mean, so for those of you that don't know, Kaitlin and I own the same business separately. Hers is hers, mine is mine. We help each other out. We have a little pillow talk on it. But at the end of the day, her business is her business and mine is mine. But they've got the same logo on the door with our names under them. So we run them differently. I am a salesperson who is not as good at managing people as she is. She is not a salesperson, but she manages salespeople really well, and both work. But in those roles, I will say people will say things to you that are disrespectful that they would never say to me. And I don't know what the difference is. And it's unfortunate. And I told you this day one, and excuse me for using the term bitchy, but if I am assertive, people call me a good leader with employees or with customers. If I act a certain way, he has leadership qualities. If you act the same way, they say she's bitchy. Yeah. And that's unfortunate. And it's not fair. Somebody did once ask Kaitlin if her husband bought her that business so she would have something to do. And they're lucky that I wasn't there. I say that she can take care of herself, though. And I think she let them know that that was not the case. But there is a double standard there. And you don't always realize it until you have daughters, right, and a wife who is not quiet about things like that. And who it does. I can tell you, if I had just boys, I'd probably see the world differently than I do now with having 3 girls and a boy. Because even sports are different, softball and soccer and those kind of things. Like we've had to, it's a different experience than I had growing up. And so you learn those things differently. I mean, even on a high school level, I probably didn't have any recollection or care about women's sports. Now, obviously, I have a vested interest in making sure that those things aren't overshadowed by things like football. And we're in West Texas, and so football is king. But now I'm looking at it like I need to make sure soccer and softball, that they have the best coaches that they can have and that they have the best opportunities that I would have never thought of before.
But so don't you think that as a father who would like for his daughters to grow up and be business owners themselves, or entrepreneurs, or really we just want them to do whatever they want to do. But I think being a woman owning a business and having been talked to in that way, I think we'll raise our children with that in mind and more or less how to overcome it.
Oh, for sure.
Not just, oh, don't worry, that won't happen to you if you act A, B, and C. It will happen, even though it's 2021.
It is.
It happens.
But nobody prepared us for that in general in life. There's a lot of things that Kaitlin and I have overcome and that we've learned on our own. Not to any fault of our parents or grandparents or anything like that, but there's a lot of things that you just don't learn growing up. You learn through hard knocks that we'll be able to teach our kids and to transition them into that, especially in a business owner point of view, because I can't tell you how many people, when you first go into business, will tell you, oh, that's risky. Why are you doing that? That's scary. You could fail. You could lose everything. And that's not encouraging.
It's not, but those are people that have not ever owned a business or that owned a business that might have had a bad time with it. Like, don't make the mistakes that I made. Which
is normal. And what's interesting is in America, we don't see that a lot because a lot of people will say you keep trying. You know, we talk about Sam Walton having 12 failed businesses before Walmart. Now his family is one of the wealthiest in the world. but he didn't give up. But I've heard in other countries like Europe, when if you fail at business, people go, "Oh, you probably shouldn't have been in business." Like that, you don't have the opportunity to try again. So maybe it's an American thing or a Western thing where we'll keep trying till we make it. But I've even had people talk to me about that, or be like, "Why are you putting positive stuff? Are you trying to coach people? Are you being on Instagram?" Or like you get some of that hearsay or that negative talk of, "Well, why are you trying to do that? Like, well, who do you think you are?" And you just have to ignore it. I mean, is the bottom line, because I know what my goals are. I know what I want to do, and I know what's important to me. And that's what matters. Kaitlin's opinion matters. Mine matters. There's a few other people. But I kind of have the opinion that if you disagree with something I say or do in life or social media, call me, talk to me about it. And if you don't have my number, well, you're not important enough for me to care about what you think. And Caitlin's may think that's harsh, but it's the reality. If somebody doesn't have my phone number, I honestly don't care enough about what they think about what I'm doing. But you have to train yourself, because that's not a natural tendency in life, though. And so, yeah, I think we're raising strong young ladies who I want to understand the value of that and help them build their own empires, if they want to.
Right.
And give them the tools to do it. I mean, I posted that on Facebook the other day, and my aunt actually texted back to us, and we were discussing that on make your daughter so capable that you don't have to worry about who will marry her. Instead of saving money for a wedding day, spend it on her education, and more importantly, preparing her for her marriage. Instead of preparing her for her marriage, prepare her for herself. Teach self-love, confidence, and that she can throat punch someone if she needs to. I have had that conversation a few times with my girls. And so to me, I mean, I think that is a big aspect of it, that you don't think about till you raise daughters.
But I will say I have grown significantly in that arena. And it kind of goes back to thinking about everything happening for a reason, if that's the kind of thought that you have about things. Living life with no regrets, because whatever happened brought you to where you are right now. Although I have some mixed thoughts about that. But anyway, I told Richard at the time, and I think it's still true. The scariest moment in my life was a big sit down panel interview. And I just thought, I'm never going to get through this. Like, I'm never going to get through this. I cried.
You did.
I can't even tell you how many times I cried that morning.
I was trying to find some Xanax to put in some cheese.
I said, I'm not doing it. I'm not going. And I hate that I work myself up that way, but I do. But now, all these years later, that's behind me. I still don't know that I would ever repeat that again.
And that's part of where we're different. I thrive in those situations. I don't mind speaking in front of large groups. We're different. It makes her sick at her stomach when I'm speaking in front of groups that don't stress me out at all. And so, but that's a good thing. We can help each other grow.
That experience has helped me grow, and it hasn't hardened me. I think a lot of people think that it will, like, oh, you're an agent, or now you're having to deal with all these customers that a lot of times aren't the nicest to you over things that you can't control. And I think sometimes people think it's going to make them really hardened or mad. Yeah. Or, make you that type of person that just like searches out confrontation. And although I can better handle it now, and it doesn't give me a stomach ache to have those conversations, because I've had so many of them at this point, it's still, I can still be who I was before. I'm not hardened. I think that any personality, whether you're a strong personality like he is, or maybe one that's a little bit more passive, I'm a total people pleaser, a customer service person. I think that there's a place in business ownership and in entrepreneurship for a multitude of personalities.
Without a doubt. I think you have people that think that you have these outgoing, flamboyant, flashy people who are in sales. And we're all in sales on some level. I mean, the teachers who are teaching my kids today are selling something. And you got to understand that. but like, it's not the case. I mean, I think we have these perceptions. I mean, everybody's selling something, and there's a lot of, but it goes back to, there's so much opportunity out there, and everybody can do it differently and be successful. I mean, I know people that have done multi-level marketing, which may have a bad rap sometimes, but that make $500,000 a year, and they're not salespeople. They've shared a product that they believe in.
Yeah. But some of that comes from leading a team too. And I had a terrible boss, and it's not with, I mean, like it's in the realm of possibility that she would see this. So I'm probably just not going to say her name, but
It's okay. I hope she sees it.
She was horrible, like horrible in ways that she just didn't have to be. But on the outside, to other people, she was light and bubbly, and you would think that she was just sweet. And I just told myself, if I'm ever in a position where I am employing other people, I would never, ever treat people like that. It's just unnecessary. I would never treat people like that. And I think that even people that have worked for me that had to cut ties, whether it was on my end or their end, I don't think that there are any of them that would say she was a horrific person. Well, maybe that one. There might be
There's
one.
very few that would. You're a pretty awesome person.
But anyway, just echoing the fact that you can be a business owner and not have to be this harsh,
cutthroat,
alpha, masculine female.
Right.
Even though people are going to say, oh, did your husband buy you this agency so that you could have a side gig, something to do during the day?
Yeah.
Like I didn't have anything to do.
That is true. That one gets brought up occasionally. I'm just glad that I kind of wish I'd have been a fly on the wall when that happened. But ultimately those things are unfortunate. They happen, but it goes along with it. You just have to overcome and not let those things bother you. I mean, I think the thing that I've learned the most about being in business and is having thicker skin. And it doesn't mean that you're hard. It means that you don't take things to heart. Because to me, if it's not coming from somebody that I would take advice from, I'm not going to listen to the criticism. But that's hard. It's not something anybody comes by naturally. It's something you have to train yourself.
Come by that naturally.
You have to work on it. You have to work on it daily. It's one of those habits that you have to really think about consciously. How do I respond to this? All right, Kaitlin, we've kind of run out of time today. Where we are, what questions do you have for me that you think the world would want to hear?
Okay, so if I asked you to name a positive and a negative in your life right now, any aspect of your life, what would they be?
Negative is COVID. I'm at the point where I'm fatigued from it in general. It's not to say that it's not real, and I don't believe science, and I don't think that vaccines are out there and going to do good things. I'm just, as a business owner, as a person, I love to travel. I'm over it. Yeah. That's a negative in my life. A positive is we're getting in a groove. And I think that that's what I did a video this week about habits and how routines help you be successful. I feel like we're getting in a groove. You may not feel that way yet because she just went back to work this week and is taking our infant with her for a while, which you can do as a business owner. So think about those things when you're looking at flexibility in life. But I feel like we're getting into a groove again after a year of very little. I mean, we had routine, but anytime you don't know what's going on with school or travel plans or different things like that, because we took a big trip last summer that we didn't know going into certain states. They were lifting COVID requirements the days we were traveling. And so there were places we didn't know what we were going to have to do when we got there. A lot of people would have skipped that trip. We went ahead and went and took faith that everything would be fine. And it was. We had a great time.
It was. I think we were actually only not able to do one thing.
We ate in a parking lot at Cracker Barrel in Colorado because they couldn't serve us inside. Yeah. They could the next day, but that day the law hadn't changed yet.
We had our fifth wheel with us, and we brought out a camping table from the basement underneath storage. And we set it up in the parking lot, and we stood around the table and ate our Cracker Barrel. They have RV parking.
All right, Kaitlin, what's your favorite quote in life?
Seriously,
she's not a quote person, so I knew that was going to be a tough one.
maybe something along the lines of the sweet ain't sweet without the sour.
Love it. I think that's actually from a movie called Vanilla Sky. If you don't remember, at least it's quoted in there by Jason Lee. I've used it. I've written about it in a blog before. So that's the only reason I did some diligence on the research. The Fergeson family motto is Dulcius ex asperius from Scotland, which means sweeter through difficulty. So it's something that I think is important. Difficulties make things better afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. Difficult customers make you appreciate the nice customers.
But it's how you look at it.
It is.
So, well, we're at the end of our time today. We want to thank everybody for listening. Hit us up on Instagram at The Real Live It Full. On Facebook is at the Fergeson 5, which now there are 6 of us, but we don't want to change that. It's Live It Full. We have our own Facebook group, Live It Full, the community. Reach out to us. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast and continue to live it full.
I feel like Josh is going to be sad that you didn't answer
Oh,
his
you know
zombie
what?
question.
You're right. I will. Give me 1 second and find it exactly. I don't want to miss it. So Mr. Josh Boyd, if you woke up in a zombie apocalypse, what would be your weapon of choice? And then another friend of ours said it's a 2-parter, a firearm of choice and a non-firearm of choice. So I would definitely go with a machete.
I mean, how could you not pick a flamethrower?
That's it. Some napalm. I like it. I personally would have picked machete and a 300 blackout AR pistol. But, hopefully Josh and Scott got a good answer from that.
I think I would do a flamethrower.
You're smarter than me. We've already talked about I'm slow. But we do appreciate everybody listening. Make sure and hit the subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you the next time.
You just listened to this entire episode. That means you gained some type of value. So make sure you leave a review and subscribe so you never miss an episode of Live It Full. Living everyday life with a purpose. Living everyday life with a purpose. Make sure you embrace every single day. And we'll see you next time on the Live It Full podcast.